There are two things you need to know to lower your handicap quickly and easily. You need to know how far you are away from your target, and you need to know how far you hit the golf ball with each club. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to get the distances you hit the golf ball with each club. I'm going to let you in on a little secret to help you hit more greens with this information, and why you should never ever get your distances down the driving range. Let's get into it. The best way to go about getting your distances is by doing a gap test. A gap test is where you hit all the golf clubs in your bag and average out the distance that these clubs hit the golf ball. But how do you actually go about doing a gap test? Every single golf club pro with a launch monitor is going to be able to offer you a gap test. Now I'm going to show you a step-by-step guide on how I go about doing a gap test. And everyone should be doing this at least once a year. This is actually my third gap test of the year, and I'm only doing it because I've changed my swing recently and my distances have changed. But there are loads of reasons why you should be doing this at least once a year, even if it's simply just to lower your handicap. Step one is a simple one. Make sure you're fully warmed up. There's absolutely no point getting the distances with each of your clubs if you're not warmed up. So go through the same routine you would before a round of golf. Because if you don't, you'll end up with inaccurate distances for at least the first few clubs that you do. Step two is where we really get into it. This is the actual data gathering part of the gap test. You're going to want to hit at least 10 shots per club. The more shots you hit with each club, the more accurate your distances is going to be. But remember, you've got 13 clubs in your bag. 130 shots in one session, well, it's quite a lot of shots to hit. So you might want to consider breaking your bag up into 3 sections and doing this on 3 separate days. Maybe on day 1, I'll hit my wedges, and on day 2, I'll hit all of my irons, and maybe on the 3rd day, I'll hit all of my head cover clubs. Doesn't really matter how you go about it, but at the end of the day, I want 10 good shots per club saved. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. This is all well and good. Tap, he's got a launch monitor at home already. And you're right, yeah, I can do this gap test whenever I feel like, but it's not like you don't have access yourself. Like I said earlier, every golf pro with a launch monitor is going to offer a gap test. And usually gap tests are cheaper than lessons because they're not really giving much advice. They're just standing there making sure you're hitting golf clubs. A slightly more expensive option though is to buy your own launch monitor. I mean, this particular one, the Flightscope Mevo Plus, is a little expensive, but I get a lot more information for my money. Whereas there are cheaper options. The Flightscope Mevo Plus, for example, has a child basically called the Flightscope Mevo. They come in at, I think, about £450, £500, and they're just as accurate as these. And all they really give you is the distance, which is what we're after. And there are even cheaper options like that as well. Club sensor apps like Arcos Caddy can provide this information. But to be honest with you, the best place to start with all this is your Golf Pro. Now, I'm going to finish my warm-up, and then I'm going to hit my 10 shots per club. I'm not going to bore you with all those shots. I'll get back to you with my results in a second, and I'll tell you exactly my little secret that helps me to hit more greens with this information. Now, after you finish hitting all of your clubs, you're going to end up with something that looks a little bit like this. Now, here's the grouping for all of my shots and all of my clubs. Now, there's a bit of information you can take from this initial sort of screen. You can see that there's a bit of a gap here between my 5-iron and my hybrid. And my hybrid is a little bit too close to my 3-wood, and my 3-wood is a little bit too close to my driver. So this is an area within my yardages that I need to sort of take a good look at. Do I need a different club? Do I need to replace my 5-iron with a sort of stronger lofted hybrid and sort of bridge that gap a little bit? Do I need to be trying to get more distance out of my driver? All things that need to be considered. But we're on about trying to get our distances. And I did tell you that I had a little secret for you that was going to help you hit more greens. Here on the data table section, we can see how far each club was carrying and how far each club was rolling out to. Now, as we know, most people tend to miss the green short because of missed strikes. Well, I like to try and factor that in. So when it comes to whittling down my 10 shots to be more accurate, I like to get rid of my longest 3 carries. So for this particular club, my approach wedge, we've got 114.7 yards, 113.7 and 113 yards. But then I also like to get rid of my lowest 2. Your lowest 2 are usually going to be the sort of bad strikes. So I'm going to get rid of 106.6 and 109.6. Delete those 5. Now I'm going to go and do that for all of my clubs, and then we'll have another look at what the grouping looks like. Right, so I've whittled down every club to 5 shots each. And what I've ended up with is carry distances, total distances, and lateral distances. That's a big one. Now all of these carry numbers should represent a slightly below average representation of what I'm capable of. And that's key because that is going to help me hit more greens. Like I said earlier, most people miss the greens short. Well, if I factor in short into my carry number, well, I'm going to hit more greens. My good shot should always end up slightly long of my target. And those bad ones will end up being closer to the flag. Now, if we take a look at what that's actually done to my grouping, we can really see where my gaps are appearing. Where I thought I had a problem with my hybrid wasn't a problem. I just had a couple of shots in there that were well above my average. So the hybrid is now a decent gap behind my 3-wood. Where I still have a problem though is between my 6-iron and my hybrid. My 5-iron's just not carrying far enough. And you could argue that either my driver isn't carrying far enough or my 3-wood is carrying too far. Other than that, that's fairly good gapping. Everyone thinks that they hit the ball further than they actually do. And that's why I think it's important when you're doing a gapping test to assume that you're not going to hit it as far as you think you are. And these gapping tests can be very humbling, but the fact that I factored in more of a miss hit for when I'm out on the golf course means I'm going to hit more greens. And when you hit more greens, you lower your handicap. Now, it's not just distances where a gap test is going to help you. Another vital bit of information that this process is going to give you is how far you miss your clubs left and right. Now, this is huge because it's actually going to help you aim better. For example, we can see here that with my approach wedge, I'm missing on average 0.1 yards left. With my approach wedge, I can take dead aim at my target. That is missing by bugger all. But when it comes to my 9-iron, a scoring club, I'm missing my target on average 4.5 yards left. Now I think I need to factor that in because if the hole is cut 5 yards onto the green from the left-hand side, I mean, there's a good chance I miss the green if I'm aiming straight at the flag. And also with the driver, on average, I'm missing 6.3 yards right. Well, it's a fairly accurate miss with the driver, but I need to be aiming up the left-hand side to hit more fairways. Some really useful information, and gap tests, I mean, they cost 25 quid. A very cheap investment into your golf game. Now, I did tell you, you shouldn't be getting your yardages down the driving range, and there's 2 very good reasons why you shouldn't. Number 1, most driving ranges have an undulating field. Some of them uphill, some of them are downhill, and you've got to take into account the weather conditions. On top of that, there is not a single person on planet Earth who's got eyes good enough to see exactly where the golf ball has landed. And most driving ranges only have yardage markers every 50 so yards. These launch monitors are going down to the yard about how far we're carrying the golf ball. So don't just do this down the driving range, go and see your local pro. If that's not a good enough reason, the driving range ball should be. We all know that these balls don't carry as far as premium golf balls. And to prove that, I've hit this driving range ball with 3 different clubs so you can see exactly how much of a difference this is. The 3 clubs I chose to hit were the pitch and wedge, 7-iron and the driver. Now the pitch and wedge was carrying 13 yards less with the range ball than I was with a premium ball. The 7-iron was carrying 12 yards less, and the driver, well, that was carrying 15 yards less than the premium golf ball. So not only can you not see where the golf ball is actually landing on the driving range, it's carrying probably 10 to 15 yards less than you would be with your own normal ball. Go and see your local pro. They're going to give you access to a launch monitor. It's going to be cheap and it's going to shave so many shots off your handicap. And do it now. There's still plenty of time left in the season for you to lower your handicap. Well, that's it, guys. That's the end of the video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the whole of this video. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. I'm hoping that by the time I've uploaded this video, I've reached 1,000 subscribers. But if I haven't, and you're still watching, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to put content out every week that sort of enlightens us mid-handicap golfers and helps us improve. So hopefully you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you next week.